A new Rolling Stone article has provided an insight into the writing room in WWE under previous CEO Vince McMahon, with 6 former WWE writers describing a kingdom ruled by fear under the former WWE CEO. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's get straight into this Rolling Stone article that was written by Christy Lee Yan Doley, and in it, 6 former writers for WWE's longest running shows, SmackDown and Monday Night Raw, have described bullying and sexism behind the scenes while former CEO Vince McMahon was in charge. Now, it's a lengthy article that has quite a few different insights in it. Let's get straight into it and describe again what is being alleged here as part of this article by the Rolling Stone. Now, it says, when Michael Leonardi was fired from his job as a television writer at the WWE in 2016, he says he was told by a HR representative and the head writer at the time that he was, quote, not fit for the role. This despite, according to Leonardi, him getting a promotion, a raise, and positive feedback during his 10-month stint. But less than a week prior to his dismissal, Leonardi says he was dressed down by the company's then CEO Vince McMahon for making a last-minute minor change to a script that he and other wrestlers thought was racially insensitive. Quote, he turned to me and he said, "So, you don't give me what I wanted," Leonardi tells Rolling Stone. "I said, I understand, I'm sorry. We all went over it and felt good about it. We just made the small tweak. And then he started just yelling at me. It was such an intense moment. I walked out with my tail between my legs," end quote. Leonardi is one of 6 former WWE writers who spoke to Rolling Stone about what they describe as a hostile environment in the TV writers' room, which they say started at the top with McMahon and was perpetuated by staffers in leadership positions there. The majority of the former writers, who worked on the network's long-running shows Monday Night Raw and SmackDown from anywhere to 4 months to 5 years between 2016 and 2022, asked to remain anonymous out of fear of retribution from the WWE, their former colleagues, and rabid wrestling fans. Quote, WWE is a kingdom ruled by fear, one former writer tells Rolling Stone. It is the motivating factor everywhere. Fear, end quote. Representatives for the WWE did not respond to multiple requests for comment on this story. In a statement, a spokesperson for McMahon told Rolling Stone, quote, in part, scores of writers could share tales of what an enjoyable, creative, and freewheeling environment the WWE writers' rooms were. This handful of obviously disgruntled individuals aren't representative in any way of the consensus or of the truth, end quote. The workplace culture of the WWE and the WWF before it has been rife with alleged misconduct for decades. As far back as the late 80s and early 90s, there were accounts of rampant drug and steroid use among wrestlers, as well as claims of sexual harassment and abuse of both men and women within the organization. Brackets, neither McMahon nor the WWE responded to requests for comment on these incidents. All while, as described in the new Netflix docuseries Mr. McMahon, McMahon seemed to thrive on controversy and the organization grew. But in recent years, claims against the company and McMahon personally have reached a crescendo. In 2022, he stepped down as WWE CEO following a Wall Street Journal report that alleged he paid more than $12 million to 4 women to silence them from speaking out about instances of sexual misconduct and extramarital affairs he'd had with employees. Then, in January, a former WWE employee, Janelle Grant, filed a lawsuit accusing McMahon of sexual assault and sex trafficking, saying he pressured her into having sex with him and another WWE staffer in exchange for her job. The day after the suit was filed, McMahon resigned from his role as executive chairman of TKO Group Holdings, the conglomerate born from the 2023 merger of WWE and UFC, as well as his position on its board of directors. In a statement at the time, McMahon denied wrongdoing, calling Grant's lawsuit baseless and replete with lies. He is currently under federal investigation in connection with Grant's claims. McMahon, who purchased the WWE, then known as WWF, from his father in 1982, crafted a villainous public persona starting around the mid-90s, often appearing on the organization's shows to snarl at various wrestlers and even competing in the ring. In 2002, he instituted what he called the organization's ruthless aggression era, but the writers who spoke with Rolling Stone say McMahon's intimidating behavior was not just for show. By berating and belittling those around him, they say he instilled a culture of fear that trickled down. Quote, there was a very heavy layer of fear and tension, and that was directly from Vince, Leonardi says. And that culture that he created obviously created a lot of problems, end quote. The 6 writers who used to work for WWE tell Rolling Stone they regularly witnessed or were on the receiving end of verbal abuse. The allegedly hostile conditions permeated not just the writers' room, but the company in general, they say, whether at the corporate headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, or when the organization's TV shows are filmed on the road. The former writers say staffers seemed to be divided into 2 camps. Those who were WWE loyalists and only had experience working at McMahon's company, and newcomers with outside experience in the entertainment industry who immediately realized the WWE was unlike any other workplace they'd seen. Quote, everybody was getting yelled at all the time in the room, one former writer says. It was more saying shit that was humiliating or mean that was then couched as a joke, but it's a nasty joke, the writer adds. If you're being targeted in the room, nobody stands up for you because if they do, they will get a bullet in the head too. You don't stick your head up about the foxhole for anybody because nobody wants to take that bullet, end quote. Leonardi was originally hired to work at the WWE as an associate producer in 2001. He says he quit the job in 2005 because he had been demoted and stripped of his responsibilities after telling his superiors he was uncomfortable working on a storyline he viewed as insensitive. Days before the July 7, 2005 London bombings, in which Islamist terrorists detonated explosives on 3 city commuter trains and a bus, the WWE had scripted a SmackDown segment in which the controversial character Muhammad Hassan defeated The Undertaker with the help of 5 men dressed in ski masks, black shirts, and camo pants. The episode aired as planned on the 7th with a parental advisory. Still, many viewers found it offensive, even though the WWE later eliminated Hassan's character due to outside pressures, and Leonardi says he was eventually given his responsibilities back. The former writer says he couldn't get past his experience of allegedly being punished for speaking up. A decade later, Leonardi reconsidered his stance on the company when he saw a writing position open up. A longtime wrestling fan, it was his dream job to be a writer there, so he applied and was hired back at WWE, this time to work in the writer's room. But not long after, he says, another troubling storyline arose. During a taping of a Monday Night Raw segment that aired on Martin Luther King Jr. Day in 2016, Leonardi says he was producing on the road with wrestlers R-Truth, Titus O'Neil, and Mark Henry, all 3 of whom are black, and Neville, who is white. As Leonardi described in a video he posted to LinkedIn this past February, quote, the script called for Neville to speak up and tell everybody else that he's got a dream too, and that his dream is to win the Royal Rumble, referencing the civil rights leader Historic's 1963 speech at the Lincoln Memorial. Leonardi says Neville told him he was uncomfortable delivering the line and, with a limited amount of time, the bit was changed that R-Truth said the line instead. Leonardi says his boss at the time, Dave Kapoor, approved the change. Kapoor could not be reached for comment. Neville and R-Truth did not respond to requests for comment either. According to Leonardi, there were many other times when segments weren't executed verbatim, with the talent going slightly off script. Sometimes wrestlers would even ad-lib a little, he says, and it was not a big deal. But after bringing the change to McMahon's attention, he says the boss became furious. Following their confrontation, Leonardi was let go. A spokesperson for McMahon denied Leonardi's account in a statement. The spokesperson acknowledged that McMahon had an extremely hands-on approach with WWE scripts, adding, quote, that's why the idea of him suggesting or approving the use of a famous Martin Luther King Jr. quote for a punchline to be used by a white British character is so ridiculous. It simply didn't happen, end quote. This wasn't the only alleged instance of racial insensitivity in the WWE writers' room. In 2023, former WWE writer Brittany Abrahams filed a lawsuit against the company and specific executives, including McMahon, alleging she was fired in 2022 after she pushed back against racism she experienced in the writers' room. According to court documents, Abrahams, a black woman, says she openly disagreed with storylines she felt played to racist stereotypes. She also says she was fired because she took a commemorative chair from a WrestleMania event, despite white employees having done so in the past without punishment. The lawsuit was later dismissed, and Abraham's attorney, Derek Sells, told a WrestleNomics reporter the matter was resolved amicably. According to the former WWE writers who spoke to Rolling Stone, the TV writers' room was unlike any other they'd experienced. For one one thing, the fact that McMahon himself, the CEO of the company of more than 800 people, regularly joined and supervised a small staff of writers, around 20 to 25 people, depending on whether the show was being produced at headquarters or on the road, was highly unusual. There were also unconventional rules, including a formal dress code. In a document detailing the dress code obtained by Rolling Stone, the company required men to wear suits and women to wear skirts, dresses, or pantsuits. In addition, all employees were instructed to keep their shoes shined at all times. There were other policies the former writers say were atypical compared to the entertainment industry standards. The writers alleged they were told not to sneeze in front of McMahon because he saw it as a sign of weakness, and to always push their chairs in when they got up from a table. The writers say they were also instructed to stand whenever McMahon walked into a room and sit down only after he took his own seat. Quote, many of the anonymous writers' claims bear no resemblance to the reality of the writers' room, a spokesperson for McMahon said in a statement. Vince never told people to stand up when he entered the room. That's ludicrous, end quote. The former writers who spoke with Rolling Stone say that while they did not hear the directive from McMahon himself, they were instructed by their managers to follow this rule. Most unorthodox of all was McMahon's direct say in the final scripts, the writers say. Until he stepped down as CEO and the chairman of the company 2 years ago, McMahon was closely involved in every single script. The former writers describe a process that was hardly collaborative. Writers would pitch story ideas to lower-level supervisors and head writers, and on days McMahon was in the room, directly to him. They would sometimes produce multiple versions of scripts, but ultimately they say McMahon changed storylines, even ones he previously approved, and entire scripts on the day of the taping. He, quote, destroyed everything by the time we got to air, seemingly just to exert his dominance, one former writer says. Quote, it doesn't really matter what he said in the creative room or if they loved it at an earlier point, it was still going to get torn up before the show, one former writer says. Quote, by the time Monday rolled around and we were all in the production meeting, something else was going to happen. It almost felt like a joke, like we were there to satisfy Vince's whims. We were all Vince McMahon transcribers. The writer adds that there was something about McMahon's changing directives that almost felt sadistic. Quote, I think Vince enjoyed the manipulation. He liked changing things. He liked keeping people on their toes. I genuinely felt like this isn't to benefit the show or the storyline. Vince just really enjoys making people squirm, end quote. Writers say it was commonplace to wait around the Stamford office late into the night for McMahon to show up to their scheduled meetings about that week's scripts. One former writer says they would often wait for hours and you wouldn't know why you were waiting. The writers claim meetings sometimes did not start until midnight and didn't wrap until 2, 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. In a statement, a spokesperson for McMahon said, quote, like many jobs in the sports and entertainment industries, the writer's position was not a 9-to-5 gig. If new ideas needed to be implemented or changes made to the script, meetings could be held late into the evening because of Vince's availability, given his travel schedule and his multiple duties at the company as CEO, as well as overseeing all of the creative content for hundreds of live events and broadcasts every year, end quote. It wasn't just McMahon who was the problem, the former writers say. One former writer says that while they didn't have any negative experiences with McMahon directly, they thought other writers in the room who were in positions of power could be bullies, motivated by fear of upsetting McMahon and losing their jobs. Those who demonstrated this type of loyalty to McMahon tended to be avid fans of wrestling who had spent their careers inside the world of WWE, the writers say. Quote, those people were the most miserable people I've ever worked with, but that's where a lot of them had worked their whole professional lives, and that's the only game in town, one writer says. They didn't know what it was like working on a regular television show, end quote. One former writer says they witnessed a colleague in a leadership position tell another writer, quote, something to the extent of, I wish your dad pulled out and on your mum's instead of having you. This was like good old boys locker room talk, the former writer says. The more someone was promoted and the closer they got to that innermost circle, the writer adds, the more volatile they got and the more you dealt with some of those good old boys, end quote. The jockeying for favour with McMahon turned people against each other, the former writers say. One compares the WWE writers' room to a culture of a mafia-style leadership in which, quote, if you do one thing, you're pissing off 3 other people who are higher up than you, who are going to chew you out, get angry or seek revenge, end quote. Quote, I couldn't understand what the hell was going on because nobody made eye contact. Nobody talked to you. It was so odd, another former writer says. Everybody's scared and the only one laughs are at someone else's expense. defense. Everybody is emotionally shut down because of the verbal beating that they take and the humiliation. That's what the room is like with a bad leader, end quote. Women in the WWE writers' room face specific challenges. Of the former writers who spoke with the Rolling Stone, the women say they felt othered and became hyper-aware of their gender because of how they were treated by male writers. One former writer says people would comment on her outfits and touch her in ways she felt unnecessary. Even though the behaviors weren't explicitly sexual, she says she felt like a means of controlling her in a way that didn't happen to the men in the writers' room. Quote, "They would touch me where they would have me come closer to them," she claims. They would pull me by my waist to come somewhere or move closer to them. I'm just super aware that it's kind of close to my butt and most people don't touch me by the waist ever. I thought, this is strange. Two former writers tell Rolling Stone that they took their complaints to Human Resources. One was subsequently fired from her position, a decision she interpreted as retaliation. According to former writers, enough female writers complained about their treatment to WWE HR in 2020 that leadership held a Zoom meeting, which they referred to as Women's Forum, in which the affected writers were encouraged to collectively air their grievances. One former writer says she grew emotional when she told everyone in the meeting that she didn't feel safe with her co-workers. Another woman who attended the meeting says the leadership staffers there were dismissive of the woman's claims. Quote, "They did it just to appease us, but they didn't take it seriously at all," she says. After the Zoom meeting, the writers who spoke with Rolling Stone say there was an in-person meeting with the entire writers' room in which senior leadership allegedly told everyone they were, quote, acting like middle schoolers and not to go to HR if they have any future problems. One male senior staffer, quote, essentially said, "Come to me if you have a problem," end quote, one former writer alleges, quote, "which is such bullshit because he's part of the problem too. He enabled Vince with everything that he did," end quote. One former writer, who says they have a history of dealing with anxiety, also says their mental health was impacted by their time working at WWE. They say they were allegedly driven to having crippling panic attacks because of the job. When the former employee brought those concerns to a WWE HR representative, they say no one ever followed up or took any course of action. Quote, "When I spoke to HR, I said, I have anxiety, I can't handle this, this is going to kill me," the writer says. Quote, "They didn't care," end quote. Another former writer says she left the job because she didn't feel safe working at the company as a woman. The writer says she was uncomfortable with the way other writers would talk about the female wrestlers' bodies and wardrobes and how they would mock or make fun of the wrestlers if they weren't over-sexualizing themselves. Quote, "On the one hand, this is the product in the story," the writer acknowledges, "but on the other hand, I feel like we're not talking about the story anymore. The undertones are dangerous, and what they wanted in their environment scared me," end quote. The writer says the way male writers spoke about and treated other women, including the network's female WWE superstars, made her feel an object. Quote, "I felt like there's no way I could be in this boys' club," she said. Now, despite the alleged toxicity of the writer's room, Leonardi says there were also times he felt a degree of camaraderie with his colleagues because they were all in this together, getting shit on all the time. Quote, "When Vince wasn't there, it was amazing to see how things opened up," he says, describing the mood as jovial on occasion. Quote, "People start talking, the creativity flows. It's just so clear how much his influence and the way he ran things would actually stifle the process," end quote. The 6 former writers who spoke to the Rolling Stone say they have no direct knowledge or of any insight into the sexual assault and trafficking allegations against McMahon, but they were not necessarily surprised to learn about Grant's lawsuits. Not only were they aware of past allegations made against the former CEO, but the writers say rumors floated around the office about McMahon and other women who work for WWE. Quote, "I never saw anything crazy like that," one former writer says. "Certainly, while I was there, I heard some of the other writers joking like, yeah, there's some women that work in the company that nobody knows what they do." When the allegations of hush payments by McMahon emerged, the writer says they all didn't find it, quote, "off-brand for the Vince that I knew," end quote. In response to the Wall Street Journal's 2022 report about hush money payments, a WWE spokesperson told the outlet that the company was cooperating with a board inquiry into the matter and taking the allegations seriously, end quote. Another former writer says they weren't shocked, but it doesn't mean that I wasn't still sickened by it. The writer adds that reading the details of Grant's allegations, quote, "finally allowed me the freedom to say that place was fucked up," end quote. There's more than one side to McMahon, Leonardi points out. He says there's no denying that McMahon's company, quote, has done wonderful things, and the former CEO has, quote, taken care of so many people, end quote, over the course of his tenure, especially by creating so many jobs. But McMahon's business acumen and any kinds of kindness he extended towards employees he favoured doesn't absolve him of the alleged wrongdoing that went on behind the scenes, Leonardi says. Quote, multiple truths are present here. We have to acknowledge and recognise the fact that he's done so many amazing, selfless things for people in the business. For a lot of people that have proven to him that they are loyal or they're just good workers, Leonardi says, but there's the other side of him. Former WWE head writer Brian Gewirtz, who is now the Senior Vice President of Development at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Seven Bucks Productions, published a memoir in August 2022 detailing his experience of working under McMahon, titled There's Just One Problem, True Tales from the former one-time seventh most powerful person in WWE. Gewirtz, who also appears in Netflix's Mr. McMahon documentary series, shares a range of stories about his time at WWE in the book, some of them portraying his position in a positive light and others corroborating the experiences of the 6 writers who spoke to the Rolling Stone. In the book, Gewirtz describes the volatile culture of WWE and how writers were, quote, either there for a minute or a lifetime. He writes about bracing himself to get chewed out, addresses incidents when McMahon screamed and yelled at other staffers, and makes statements like, quote, Vince is the entire company. Gewirtz could not be reached for comment on this story. After decades of McMahon's reign, it's a new era for WWE. McMahon's son-in-law, Paul Levesque, also known in the wrestling world by his stage name Triple H, is now the company's chief content officer. Some of the former writers who spoke with the Rolling Stone believe that with McMahon gone, the WWE is moving on. Leonardi says he's heard the work culture has improved and people are, quote, much happier, calling Triple H a, quote, great leader. But other former writers who spoke to Rolling Stone aren't convinced there'll be any major shifts in the overall culture at WWE. The long-standing atmosphere of tension and fear in the WWE writers' room is something they don't have faith can be undone overnight. Quote, there are a lot of people complicit in continuing this culture, one former writer says. I'm highly doubtful it's changed, even with Triple H in charge. I just don't think it really can. So what are your thoughts on that article? Do you think it's a bombshell article? Do you think it's just an insight of what was the past and what people already knew? Do you think it's positive that WWE are moving on? Or do you think it's negative that it does end with a suggestion that nothing's going to change in the future? Let me know your thoughts and reaction to it in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.